It's come to my attention that people out there are just soaking up whatever their heroes say. We have to have a serious talk. Cut it, cut the theme, cut the theme. Guys, we're going to have a serious long talk today, and the subject matter includes that of a 10-year-old boy with muscular dystrophy getting bullied out of a tournament. Yeah, it gets that bad. But it's my job to also kind of lighten the mood and entertain you guys as well. So, before we get started on all the deep stuff, let's listen to the first single by CT's Newsstand Band, the Shady Bunch. I'll meet up with you right after.
Here's a tale of Chris and Trey Zaldain, and Randy B who loves to play the blame. Adding Gerald, stirring up some rumors. They're pointing fingers, spreading out the shame. Here's a tale of young angler Trey McKinney, trying hard to make a name with no disgrace. But the Shady Bunch just couldn't believe it, accusing rookies with no solid case. And so they became the Shady Bunch, the Shady Bunch, the Shady Bunch. That's the way they became the Shady Bunch. There's a tale of young angler Trey McKinney, trying hard to make a name with no disgrace. But the Shady Bunch just couldn't.
So let's hold that high.
Accusing rookies with no
130 pounds.
So they became the Shady Bunch, the Shady Bunch, the Shady Bunch. That's the way they became the Shady Bunch. And so they became the Shady Bunch, the Shady Bunch, the Shady Bunch. That's the way they became the Shady Bunch.
You know, folks, we all want to believe our heroes and those we look up to, including professional anglers that we like. Luke Duncan recently said that if you look into every angler's closet, no matter who it is, you're going to find a little something, something. And he's right, because we're only human. See, folks, the problem we're having here is multifaceted. First, we have rumors being shopped as facts. And then we have these talking heads, these pros and former pros who think they're qualified to speak as journalists, when in reality, they wouldn't know true old-school journalistic standards if it kicked them in the face. Then these talking heads weaponize their thousands of social media followers against their perceived enemies, with no regard to the actual damage it does and what collateral damage then gets caught in the crossfire. Now, getting to the bottom of these accusations, the first thing we need to do is step back and remember the source. A lot of it's coming from the Karen and Kevin of bass fishing themselves, Chris and Trey Zaldain. Now, these two claim to have receipts when really all they have is...
Yeah. But trust me. Then
they end up making these big, broad statements that they either sweep under the rug or have to walk back. Meanwhile, in the real world, Chris Zaldain just got fined by Bass for a violation of the C6 sportsmanship rule. You know, for that heated on-the-water confrontation he had with the local angler. Who brought up to the rule first that it was even a violation of C6? This channel. And even with all the backlash Chris got for that confrontation with the local angler, he still has folks in the public that back him. You know, birds of a feather, right? Here, I'll let one of them tell you himself.
Chris Zaldain is the epitome of what a bass pro should be. There's nobody that, in my opinion, that can say a bad word about Chris Zaldain.
In all fairness, Randy did say that he thinks there's three kinds of local anglers. The only one he really likes, bows to the pros. Imagine that. And the one that Chris ran into, he said it's this guy.
And then you have the type out there, the type that Chris ran into, that are basically, they're, for lack of a better word, they're just trying to be a dick sometimes.
You add all that up, and of course he's going to say,
I'm going to defend Chris on this particular thing. Now,
we're all familiar with Randy bashing co-anglers. Now he's moved on to rookies. You know, he hasn't met a single one of these guys that he's talking trash about, but he says,
cockiness that we've seen in some of the rookies here over the past year. And backmouth your fellow pros when they try to call you out on something.
And again, he wasn't even there. The information he's getting is from one guy, and the one guy misled his viewers. We'll get to that later. At the heart of this is pure 100% uncut jealousy. Just take a look.
I got a message. You guys ain't as good as what you think you are. You know?
I know, buddy. I know. It's okay. Just let it out.
They have experienced what I call fake success.
Do you know how I know it's jealousy? Well, it's simple. I can do math, and if Randy has the calculator, I bet he can too. Now, a quick look at Randy's stats page over on MLF and FLW's website. You'll see he's competed in 198 tournaments, and during those 198 tournaments, he's averaged about $4,200 per tournament. Not bad, right? Now, if you go over to Trey McKinney's stat sheet over at Bass, you'll find out he's competed in 16 events, and that includes his opens. He's averaging a whopping $14,000 plus per tournament, lapping Randy by 10 grand per event. Now you're going to say that doesn't include all the winnings over at Bass for Randy, and you're right, it doesn't. Why? Because I looked at those stats and they were kind of similar to those at MLF, so it pretty much evens out. Meanwhile, during all this, Trey Zaldain's been over on Twitter, X, in what resembles a wine-fueled rant backing up her husband. Amongst the high points in her rant, she calls out local anglers and said that all the pros pay state income tax too. Only if they cut a check, lady. And then she said that all of us little people wouldn't have the lures we did if it wasn't for the pros designing them. So we owe them the water. Yeah, only a handful of pros actually design their own baits. Everybody else, the lure company makes them, the pros stamp their names on them. Stop blowing smoke up our butts. Now, folks, I warn you, this is where things start to get dark. And first, I want to throw out my credentials and the reason why I believe I can bring you actual news. First, I'm not your typical YouTuber. Those of you who are familiar with my early work understand that I've got a background in journalism. Yes, I actually did a freelance contract with Bass. I've written for national publications, had stories picked up by the Associated Press. My actual education is in real old school journalism and in criminal justice. That part of my career, I'm certified in neurolinguistics and interview and interrogation. So yeah, I know how to get to the bottom of a story. So do you remember back when Trey Zaldain got on Twitter and accused Trey McKinney of getting information on Wheeler from his old tournament partner and coach? Well, her story stinks as bad as her nickname. The man she's referring to is named Rick Cheatham. Yes, Rick did fish an event with the Tennessee River Team Trail a week before the elites were on Lake Wheeler. Now, if you look at that very same tournament results page that she herself posted on her Twitter, you'll see the name of Rick's tournament partner beside his. The name, Axton Cheatham. Axton is Rick's 10-year-old grandson who suffers from muscular dystrophy. If any of you know anything about that disease, you know the life expectancy is not very long. So at the end of the day, I've got two questions for Trey Zaldain. One, did you know Rick's tournament partner was his sick 10-year-old grandson and just not tell your fans? Or two, did you not have the receipts you thought you did because you have the journalistic capabilities of a fruit fly? Trey made it sound like that Rick and his grandson fished this tournament just to get information for Trey McKinney. No, lady. They fished all 5 tournaments on the Tennessee River Team Trail, which includes Pickwick, Gunnersville, and Wheeler. This story blew up right as Rick and his grandson were fishing their event on Lake Wheeler a week before the elites. What happened was a bunch of the butthurt baby boys over at Bass started screaming at Bass staff, and people in and around Bass started bugging Rick and his grandson so bad that they left the freaking tournament and didn't even fish day 2. Now, before all the Chris and Trey sycophants ask me who my sources are, guess what? The man who runs the freaking trail. His name is Eric White, and he's a lieutenant in the local police department. Now, there's a bit of silver lining to this story. A local tackle company is actually sponsoring Axton for all 5 tournaments plus a championship on the Tennessee River Team Trail. The name of that company? Grassy Custom Rods and Tackle. Their link will be in the description below. In addition, a link to donate to the Muscular Dystrophy Association will also be down there. If you feel that, please throw a little something their way too. It's no question that Trey McKinney's done some things to not do himself any favors this year. First, he did not pay attention to the briefing and blew through the no-wake zone. Then he was late for weigh-in by not realizing what time it was, and then picked up the call from his mom, worried, going, "Where the hell are you?" And then he got a warning over there for cutting some brush that was about 25 feet outside the line of where he could cut. It's paying attention to the details that's really bit him in the ass. Guess what? He'll be the first to admit that. Meanwhile, what Mr. Swindle isn't telling you is some things that he left out. After I did my part 2 on the McKinney-Swindle confrontation, I got an email from none other than Leann Swindle, Gerald's wife. One of the things she said in this email was, if Trey self-reported himself, and I'm not saying he didn't, why did Lisa still require G to fill out a protest? That part's easy. Any self-respecting tournament director, if they get a report about the same incident from 2 people, they're going to want it in writing in both so they can make the proper decision. That's common sense. And remember when I reported that Trey had actually tried to call Gerald to work things out, but Gerald didn't answer the phone? Well, here's what she had to say about that. We didn't know Trey had called G. We were already in the bed because it was pushing 10 o'clock. But after hearing about it, we did look and find a missed call from an Illinois number. So, the people I talked to in Trey's camp were absolutely telling the truth. And to all you people who are out there defending Gerald Swindle, remember when he told you that he was having to stay up at night because of this situation to file a protest?
Make me stay up at night writing a protest.
So Leann Swindle self-snitches on the situation by saying, but I had to type up the formal complaint for Bass and it was much later than 2 hours. Help me understand this. The situation was so dire and important that you felt the need to go confront Trey in front of a reporter and small kids he was signing autographs for. But it wasn't dire enough that you fill out the protest yourself before you left the weigh-in area. Instead, you wait till you get back to the RV and pass it off to the wife to type up. And then days later, get on social media, blasting the kid for putting you in a situation where you had to stay up at night writing a protest that your wife typed up. Yeah, that's man's man, all right. After all this, she signs the email, sincerely, Leann Swindle. Well, folks, I guess it's true what they say about never meet your heroes. I really did like Swindle before that incident with Trey McKinney. Then I kind of saw through the smoke and mirrors. Anyway, I want to tell you I appreciate each and every one of you for being here today. Please leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, even become a member. But you know what I'm going to say. Until next time we meet, don't get out in the heat, go night fishing. But get out there and keep it wet.
So they became the Shady Bunch, the Shady Bunch, the Shady Bunch. That's the way they became the Shady Bunch.